Formula did somebody use for this? Like, just tell me the formula. Yes, sir. Very good. Y2 minus Y1. Now, I haven't taught you this, so it's okay if you didn't remember. But you should have learned that in geometry and algebra 2. Not saying you should have remembered it, because I already told you I expect you to forget 90% of the stuff. But I'm just saying it's probably somewhere deep within the recesses of your memory. Anyway, that's the formula for slope. Common question, and you may already know the answer to it, but I'll go ahead and tell you anyway. Common question with slope is, how do you know which point is the first point and which point is the second point? It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. If you want to use this y value first, then you have to use this x value first. Same thing for that one. It doesn't matter. So you probably should have done 10 minus 7 over 8 minus 4, which would have given you 3/4. 3/4 is the slope between those two points. Questions on the Dom? No one approached me before class, so I'm assuming there were no questions on the homework. Alright, let's just jump straight into it. Find the slope passing through the given points. Well, that's exactly what we just did. So, the rest of these are the exact same. If you want to look at them, is there a particular problem that looks harder than some of the others? Maybe we can take a look at it. Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. What happens if you get something over 0? Undefined. Yeah, it would be a vertical line, but as far as the slope, you would just say that it is undefined. Are there any questions about this slide, just finding slope? I almost didn't see this part. Turn down the conversation. It then says, tell whether it rises, falls, horizontal, or is vertical. When you get no solution, it is vertical. When you get 0 over something, which would be like number 5, -2 minus -2 is 0. When you get 0 on the top of your fraction, it's horizontal. And then rises and falls is just, is it positive or is it negative? If it's a positive number, it's rising. If it's a negative number, it's falling. Does anybody maybe want to see one more of those? And if so, what number? No, this one would be 0 over -1, or 0 over 1, depending on how you did it. Either way, it's 0. And it would be 0, comma, horizontal. Number 9 should be the only one, yeah, that's no solution. But it would then be vertical, you have to put that too. Alright, using the given conditions, write an equation for point slope and slope intercept form. Blast from the past stuff you probably haven't heard of in years. Point slope form and slope intercept form. Now, slope intercept is the one I'm sure you're much more comfortable with. Point slope form is when they give you the slope in a point, it's just easier to start with that form as long as you've got it. Point slope form is this. And it's actually easier just to start with that. So, point slope form. Y, what's my y value? 5. So y minus 5 equals the slope times x minus my x value, which is 3. And that's it. That is point slope form. There's nothing left to do. This is the equation for a line. That's why there's still a y and an x in there. You're not going to be filling something in for every variable. That's it for point slope form. To put it in slope intercept form, what's the only thing we have to do? I actually heard the word y equal, and that's the answer to the question. Solve for y. You solve that equation for y, and boom, it's now in slope intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So, putting this thing in slope intercept form, we're going to multiply by the 2, add the 5, -6 plus 5 is -1. This is one of your answers, and this is one of your answers, and that's it. Point slope, slope intercept. It's and. It wants both. Give both of them. So that's why I personally would start with slope, point slope, and then just move into slope intercept. Is there another problem on the board somebody would like to see? Just pick one. How about, you said 13? 13 is fine with me. 13, point slope. Y minus my y value equals slope times x minus my x value, which you can change that to plus 2, but I'm just going to leave it. And then for slope intercept form, you have to multiply through by your 6. So that's going to be 6x. 6 times positive 2 is 12. Add the 5. That's right. 6x plus what? Plus 17. That's one answer. That's the other. Okay. Questions? Moving on. Same exact thing. Ooh. What do you think 21, instead, what is the coordinate that it gave us on 21? Yeah, it would just be 0, 0. So point slope would be y minus 0 equals 1/2 times x minus 0. You could just leave it like that for point slope, even though you could reduce it quite easily. And for slope intercept, well, what's y minus 0? Y. And then 1/2 x times, plus 1/2 times 0, so it would just be this. That would be your slope intercept. This would be your point slope. And you could take out the zeros if you wanted to, but then they're the same equation. So, questions? Same thing, except this time, instead of giving you the slope and a point, they just gave you 2 points, and you have to combine both things that we've done. So let's pick one at random. How about number 31? First thing you have to do is what? Find the slope. We're doing 31. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 6 minus negative 2 is 8. 3 minus negative 3 is 6, which reduces to 4 over 3. Now, it doesn't matter which point you choose. They are the same exact equation. So, let's just use the first point. Y minus negative 2, which is the same as y plus 2, equals the slope times x minus negative 3, which is the same as plus 3. That's your point slope form. And if for slope intercept, well, let me distribute first. 4/3 times x. What's 4/3 times 3? Ooh, you guys are savvy with your fractions. That's going to make my job easy. And then subtract the 2. And there you go. There's point slope. There's slope intercept. It doesn't matter which point you choose. Even if we had used this point, when we had put it in slope intercept form, it still would have been the same thing. So just pick either point and plug it in. Questions? Okay. What is happening? Same exact problems. They just worded them different. What's the second coordinate on 35? Negative 2, 0. Very good. An intercept is just a coordinate, with the other one being 0. And what are my two coordinates on 37? 0, 4. And what's the first one? That's right. And then you would do it the same way. Find the slope, plug in one of the points. Question? Give the slope and y-intercept of each line, then graph. You don't have to graph. We're going to be doing lots of graphing in your very near futures, so you don't have to graph today. If you did, all you would do is use use an XY chart. But today, all you have to do is tell me the slope and y-intercept. Well, look at this. They were nice enough to put them all in y-intercept form. Which number is the slope? m. So, like 43, what would my slope be? And what would my y-intercept be? Well, you guys obviously don't need me to teach you this. Raise your hand if you have a question. I know it's been longer for some of us since geometry. If you have a question about where we got either of those two numbers for number 43, please raise your hand. You know what? Do graph these, but you can just do them on one little graph. I'm going to graph all of these in like seconds. That's not bragging, just saying. If you do it on one graph. Y equals -2 is right there. I'll draw in my tick marks in a second. X equals -3 is right there. Y equals 0 is going to overlap with my x-axis. Well, it would have if I had done it better. F of x equals 1, what is that? Y equals 1, so it's that line right there. And let's see, at that's an x, which means we have a vertical line right over here-ish. So, if you want to just do them like that and say that, hey, this one is 49, this one is 51, this one was 53, 55, and this one was 57. Just remember, x equals a vertical, y equals a horizontal. I really sprinted through that slide, so if you would like to ask a question about where one of those came from, please do not hesitate to ask. Questions about where any of those lines came from. Rewrite the given equation in slope-intercept form, and then give the slope and y-intercept, and then it says graph. Again, I know you did that back in geometry. I'll graph one here so that you've seen it, but I'm not going to require you to do it. Number 63, for instance, rewrite the given function in slope-intercept form. What's the whole key to getting something in slope-intercept form? Solve for y. Very good. So let's add the 4y to the other side. You might use a different order of operations than I do. That's fine. Divide by 4. Boom. There's part A. I'm doing, by the way, number 63. What's the slope and y-intercept? Y is -3. I'm not going to require you to graph them, but if you were to graph them, all you'd have to do, assuming you could draw straight axes, is have a y-intercept of -3 and a slope of 2. Up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, connect your dots in a should-be straight fashion. That's not very good, but whatever. Are there questions about what you're going to be asked to do on those problems? Use intercepts to graph the equation. I'll tell you what, you can just tell me what the intercepts are, and I'm going to trust that you can connect the dots. Let's see. Now, but finding the intercepts, if I was looking for my x-intercept, what is the y-coordinate on my x-intercept? 0. So the way you find your intercepts is just plug in 0 for the other letter. So like for 71, if you plug in 0 for y, you get 8x equals 12. Divide by 8, and what is that, 3/2? That is your x-intercept. Did I do that right? Or is it 2/3? I put in 0 for y. So I just got 8x plus 12. Yes, thank you. Which would have made that a -12, therefore making it -3/2. Thank you. So my x-intercept is 0, -3 over 2. And then for my y-intercept, that's going to have an x-coordinate of 0. So I can plug in 0 for my x. -2i plus 12 equals 0. Subtract. Y equals 6. And your y-intercept equals 0, 6. You don't have to graph them, but that's how you find your intercepts. Again, I've kind of done this lesson at like the speed of light, so if you have a question, please ask. I know some of you might not have even flipped the page in your notes and I was already done. So, questions about anything that we've done? Marco, you're all over it today. I got those backwards. Negative 3 halves, comma 0. Thank you. Good catch. Well, maybe if you had the guts to say it out loud, I'd have said you were all over it. Yeah, right. Questions? That's right. Because anything with an x and a y in it, any equation with an x and a y in it is a linear equation. And so any x and y that make that function true are its coordinates. So the x-intercept, well, if I asked you to look at a graph and say, where's the x-intercept, you're going to look at where, crikey, I got those backwards, didn't I? Darn it. She brought up a good point, which made me have a moment of realization. An x-intercept of this function would be like here, right? Which value equals 0 here, your x or your y? Your y. Thank you for asking that. I got in such a hurry, I got these backwards. For the y-intercept, no, I had that labeled right. No, I did have it right. I must have just said it wrong. Yeah. For your x-intercept, you're going to plug in 0 for y, and for your y-intercept, you plug in 0 for the x. Yes. Yes. Like this coordinate, that's an x-intercept, but it's where y equals 0. And since these are all just lines, that's why there's only just one of them for each of them. Ooh. Panic numbers. Yeah, just let's intercept. Questions? Okay. There you go.